Hello everyone. The topic for this presentation is monitoring and evaluation, result, use and dissemination. Now what are we going to discuss about it? The outcomes of the project, thereby how to monitor and what are the process that we goes around it. So yes, we are talking about monitoring and evaluation, why engagement is required. We will be appreciating a particular project from the perspective of gender biasness, or let's say gender sensitizations, and discuss this topic in depth. So logical framework approach, the log frame as we basically call as, that's the definition of log and frame. Log framework approach, if we say, popularly known as log frame. Definitely yes, PLC curve that we are looking into is project life cycle, data collection and analysis, and last but not the least would be the design part of the evaluation. So yes, the key terms that we'll be visiting in this particular presentation is all about indicators, inputs, outputs. Remember, indicators are to be constructed at the very beginning of the project, stating what are the outcomes that we are looking into it and how do we process them. To appreciate the outcomes, we need to understand what is the input that goes around it, the intermediate results, the outputs, the objectives. Definitely yes, for every project there has to be a goal, there has to be a target, the baseline, as in the timeline is going to say, let's say month 1 or week 1, month 2 or week 2, month 3 or week 3, as the case might be, right? The impact that it goes around it. And definitely, did I say that we will be discussing this particular presentation in the form of gender sensitizations, thereby monitoring, continuous internal management is what we look forward to it. Monitoring is nothing but keeping a tab on things of what exactly is happening in an organization, ensuring that the project is on track, it is following a schedule not only in terms of time that has been spent around it, work that has been put into it, the effort that goes into it, and also the cost which should be within the budget. So measuring progress towards the objectives, I have already said about men, material and money that we are looking into it. Identify the problems or the hiccups if there are any for this project, thereby. Yes, evaluation is assessing whether a project is achieved its intended objective, as the case might be. We basically conduct it periodically as to what is expected and what not to be done. Evaluation can be both having an internal audit from the internal team of the organization or the project, or probably even an external audit who can verify or have an eagle's eye view altogether. Focus is on the outcome and the impact thereof. So is it important? The question is it important? Do you think this person who is actually watching it through a binoculars exactly what we are looking into it? Why did I inculcate that picture? Because this is the reason where one will take the stock of the things about the resource consumption, the feedback on progress, improving project effectiveness, informing decisions, promoting accountability, demonstrating impact, and identifying if there are any lessons that has been learned. Now, how do we learn lessons? If we are meeting certain hiccups, certain impediments, certain difficulty in the execution of the project, definitely it shows there are some lacunae on our part. Now, how do we go around it? What is the teamwork that is required? And this will in turn make the project much more effective in the long run, or probably in the subsequent project. We should always incorporate the factors that we have already encountered this time per se. So let me talk about the gender sensitization project that we were talking around it. Now, about for genders and monitoring and evaluation, how do we go across? What comes around it? Basically nothing. We are looking at gender priorities, constructing it, probably studying it and magnifying the impact thereby. Remember, the impact can be positive and negative. Failures to address gender leads to an inefficient and unsustainable result, exacerbates inequities thereby. But that is which is very important. Gender analysis can be undertaken at any stages, but most effective if it is included in the design part, at the right at the initiation part of the project. If we can do this analysis part of it, half of your work has been done. Systematic way of analyzing different roles, different impact, different understanding, different perspective. Ask the who question as in who is responsible. Ask the who question, as in who will distribute their resources. Ask the who question as will on whose table the buck stops, as who is overall responsible, how this will affect the women and the men thereby. Measuring women participation and impact. Let me say, we have Hillary Clinton photographs. I am suppose that this is one phase that is probably prevalent around the globe, and everybody is able to identify her. So it's all about the participation in terms of reliable data on basic facts. Keep us from getting the most of the investments. What can get measured? Remember, anything that can get measured can get done, can be managed, can be done. Not enough invested in collecting data, nor in quantifying how equality yields benefit, as the case might be. Example, women representation leadership on the Indian local council. If we go around it, I am just giving into a subcontinent part of a third world country of an Indian local council where if you look into it, people are participating. If these are the peoples who are actually participating, in fact, even this wall is made up of brick. So it can show it's very rural justification that goes around it, and people are documenting whatever has been discussed and whatever needs to be done. So this is where the representation takes place. Better access to drinking water, a very general community problem. Better access to health facility, immunization control things, high career aspiration, educational attainment, as the case might be. So what is log frame? Again, did I say logical framework is log frame, as the case might be going around it? The log frame are nothing, but we are talking only about the goals. This is the goals that comes around here. If we can manage this goal. Now, how do we manage this goal? By planning right from the bottom as to which all activities that needs to be taken care of. The activities will lead to the outcomes. Only with the outcomes will come to an intermediate results. Intermediate results might be nothing but a series of outcomes which leads to a strategic objectives, perhaps the goal thereby. And that is what the log framework is all about it. Talking about logical frameworks, let's say, let us take it with an with one things and everything. Let us start from the base, as in the input. What are my resources? First and foremost is man, material, and money that I've kept on trying to tell it to you. It's financial, it's humans, it's the material that goes around it. These things, these are my resources. Now, this can be amalgamated into services per se. Now, this is what we are looking at, the services, tasks needed to reach at each output. Remember, we do an activity and the net result of that activity is that deliverables or the output that we are talking around it, and that is the product of the service that has been delivered. Let's say a customer complaint has been handled. It's a service that has been delivered, rendered altogether. A product has been produced. Definitely yes. Now, what does it mean? We come into this. This is a part of the process per se. Now we come to the outcomes part of it. And how do we go around the outcomes? The intermediate results is every deliverables will have an intermediate effect to the output of the target or the beneficiary. So these beneficiaries will nothing but will see a change among themselves. And these are the result of an intermediate results on the target and beneficiaries. We are talking about goals, which is long term, widespread, and beyond the life of the project, as the case might be. This is what we are looking forward. Logical framework example. Now, how do we go around it? So, again, simple representation of the previous slide is what we are going to give you an elaborate. Remember, if we start from if inputs, then outputs. If activities, then output per se. If output, then intermediates. If intermediate result, then objective, and overall objective will lead to the goal part. So the pathway is something similar this that goes around here. Absolutely similar as the format tells it to you. Right. So this is what we are looking into. All the input, your staff, your consultant, your grant, your budgets, your training guides, these leads to a lot of amalgamation of small activities like multi-party workshops, participatory framework, development, party consultation. These activities leads to an output, as in parties developed action plan to increase participation in the platform. And this is how we all come across with it. Intermediate result as parties implemented reforms to increase participation in the platform development. Objective political parties may be inclusive. Now here the movement grows bigger and bigger and bigger until and unless it becomes the culmination point of having an inclusiveness of the society, and the community changes are be taking places thereby. Now, exercise of a log frame race for put the log frame race for the right order, and you will see you will reach the finish line altogether. Absolutely, yes, one by one, right, starting from your resources to your inputs to your activities to your outputs, the outputs to the deliverable objectives to the strategic objective, and overall goals, as the case might be. Indicators, what are we looking into it? Basically nothing but outcome versus process indicators. Now, why do we have indicators? Because indicators will uh, give me an information about whether we are on track or not, or we are swaying away from the track altogether. Qualitative versus quantitative. Absolutely, yes. Indicators would be numbers. Indicators will tell me exactly what is happening. Talking about the qualitative things, we should have indicators which are smart oriented. When I say smart, it tells me specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And this is what SMART is all about. The acronym is all about, which has been mentioned out here. This needs to be taken into consideration, right? This is smart that we goes around it. Look at the thermometers. If somebody is running a temperature, the thermometer will actually tell to you, is it 99 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Celsius? What where the temperature is going around it? What Fahrenheit the person has been actually been running fever or not. Baseline and the benchmark. The baseline is the situation before the project, as in point zero. This is my point zero, and probably this is what I would love to achieve. But this becomes my baseline BL, and this is my project target. So this is where situation of a project is all about, to demonstrate the change in time. If this is the transfer that we need to go around it, there would be something called time that needs to be taken care of. Benchmark, when you hope to achieve the targets, absolutely yes, that is what my benchmark would be all about it. What is my benchmark? Benchmark is having least cost produced output, probably having least number of defects in a day, probably having much more customer satisfaction. Probably these are my benchmarks. Targets are intermediate benchmarks, as the case might be. So yes, the baseline and the benchmark that needs to be taken care of is to be discussed intensively. Sex disaggregated indicators. Now we are talking about gender disaggregated indicators, measuring a change between two genders, as in men and women, perhaps separately, how they view things, how they are being treated according to their gender. Probably yes. The gender indicators measures gender related changes altogether, as the case might be, and plentiful of changes that comes and happens around here. Now let me talk about the gender and the log frame, as in logical framework, if I may say so. The evaluation, what are we looking into it? Monitoring, what are we looking into it? In evaluation pattern, we are talking about the empowerment, absolute empowerment that comes around it, wherein we would love to see there are no disaggregation or disenchantment as far as gender is concerned, and what kind of benefits that equal amount of genders goes around it. Remember, this is a part of evaluation thing. Now evaluation is mostly to the outcome process oriented, right? But what is monitoring? Monitoring is where the process is under the way, it is being executed as the time goes around it. We're talking about the integration of the genders, probably of the both the first gender, the second gender, and even the third gender, gender equity in allocation of resources. Yes, we are talking about everything that goes out from here to this part, from inputs to the goal part of it. If we look into it, this is what we are talking around. Right. So from inputs to activities, from activities to intermediate results, from intermediate results to objective and the goal. So yes, from monitoring to evaluation, that is what we comes happens around it. Now we'll talk about PLC, the project life cycle, right from the stage one. This is the stage one. Remember, this is the stage one that goes around it, where we are designing the project, we are identifying the problem, developing the logical framework, and the monitoring and evaluation plan thereof. Now this is my phase one. Phase two would be your startup. Actually, when we are talking where we are, as in the baseline, where do we wish to be as the targets, and if we have the allocation of the resources, thereby establish the monitoring and evaluation pattern, thereby that is what is very important. Phase 3 is project management, analyzing data and producing reports, manage activities per se as on when on basis. Phase 4 is project evaluation, collect, analyze data, produce reports, and identify. Now, this is where the culmination comes around it. The project evaluation pattern is where the culmination actually happens. Right from project design to project startup, from project startup to project management, the ongoing process of understanding the data, understanding the monitoring process, understanding the intermediate results, probably navigating them through the project evaluation phases, thereby as the phase number 4. Gender mainstreaming and the project life cycle is knowledge sharing, what we are looking into it. This is my end result and the first result. This is why I have kept it separately altogether, the knowledge sharing part of it. Right from designing to gender analysis, the need assessment, the startup, the planning part of it, the implementation, the capacity building, the gender specific action, the monitoring and evaluation, the sensitivity of the gender monitoring and evaluation pattern is all about it. We start with knowledge sharing. Again, we can come back to design about it based upon an existing knowledge base, based upon an existing thing, which becomes a baseline for the next project for the targets to be taken forward to. Now, that is what we know known as the knowledge sharing or the gender mainstreaming and the project life cycle would be across accordingly. Let us talk about the strategies. First and foremost, involve every person, involve all the stakeholders, be it men, be it women, be it the third gender, include sex disaggregated data as on when on basis. Absolutely yes. Strive for gender balances, whether it is in the organization, whether it is in the company, whether it is in the society. Try to give equal amount of responsibility to equal of there should be equity in the responsibility as far as gender is concerned. Enable men and even women to participate and benefit equally altogether. Project design question. Now, why do we go have this question? Something where we need to understand is goals and objectives. Are the goals and objectives gender centric? Definitely, it has to be. Are there inputs from either of the genders? Probably we need to go around it. Whether the baseline actually understand the gender analysis thereby. Consultation of the targets, the activities, the reflex, the gender sensitivity, as the case might be. Project implementation questions is definitely yes, gender and sex, disaggregated data, comparing data to baseline, monitoring and evaluation data used in to adjust project, women groups monitoring progress, finding disseminated references to genders in report, women involved in activities, women accessing services is very important thereby. Now, what are the evaluation question? I'm trying to understand only the evaluation, the monitoring part. Everybody must have been discussed and they have been able to grasp it. Now let us understand the evaluation. Are there any differences? Try to find it out. If there are, why? The reason is what we are looking into. If there are differences in terms of impact, in terms of access, how can we address these differences? Does the result actually compares to the target, what we set out to be right from the baseline? Did we achieve that? How did the beneficiary respond? Are the results sustainable in the first place or not? Data collection analysis, forms and procedures for data collection plan by indicators. Train staff with clear real role, with clear responsibility, with clear understanding of what is expected out of them. Database, regular reflection sessions, as the case might be, is what we are looking forward to. Now, apart from the primary data sources, we can always come for the secondary data sources, which are regional or country management development goal. The MDG reports are all about it. Every region would be having their own human index, right? Human development index. Uh, be it Africa, be it Middle East, be it Far Eastern Asia, whatever we are looking into it. So we have regional or country management development goals. We have United Nations development plans as well as human development reports are concerned. State Department human rights reports are there. We have the World Bank report, the World Economic Forum, the donor, the NGO report that goes around it. And I have just given for you certain reports which has been there reflected for you to understand. These have been duly published every now and then, and believe me or not, it helps you understand the disparities between different regions thereby. So let us understand of making an integration as far as genders are concerned. Are the indicators gender aware? Try to answer the questions, and you will understand why monitoring, evaluation, data analysis, result and sensitization is required. Are they input, output, outcome or impact indicators? Are they quantitative or qualitative? How would you make them more gender aware? Identify three additional indicators and how data would be collected thereby. Let us talk about the evaluation design. Try to identify the research question, identify methods for data collection, develop and test data collection instrument, the protocols thereby as what we are all looking for it. Evaluation criteria, yes, very important. The criteria should be all about being relevant, pertaining to the situation altogether. It should be effective, it should be efficient, should have make an considerable impact on your project, and most importantly it should be sustainable, it should be understandable, comprehensible, it should make some sense into it, and the project should not make noise. Sense is what we are looking into in terms of relevance, effectiveness, efficiency, impact, sustainability, and so on and so forth. Now, let me go into what we have discussed. We have understood the project effectiveness. We try to understand and demonstrate the impact and identify what we have learned from our project. We should try to have the result as far as what it tries to address, and how do we mainstream it, how do we put it into the DNA of the people, of the community. Log frame with sex desegregated and gender specific indicator, system for data collection analysis, evaluated result, relevance, effectiveness, efficiency, impact and sustainability. With this I come to an end of this presentation. Thank you for watching this video till the very end.